folks. Welcome to yet another beautiful January day here in Ontario. It was a balmy minus 23 last night, and as you can see, although it's winter, we haven't got much snow. I just love hearing the birds sing. Well folks, earlier this week my wife asked me if I'd look after a chore for her, and this is one of those chores that I actually really enjoy. She's asked me to sharpen some kitchen knives. So I'm going to head into the shop, put a fire in the furnace, and I'm going to sharpen some knives, maybe even drink a little tea. So I invite you to join me. Let's go in the shop where it's nice and warm. We're going to be nice and warm, and we'll have some fun. It's good for me to be reminded of some of the simple pleasures in life. Like coming out to the workshop here to sharpen my wife's kitchen knives with a stack of dried hard maple, a wood furnace kicking out the heat. It's amazing how heat on a cold winter's day, a little bit of solitude out here, it is so nice. Well, these are the knives that my wife has asked me to sharpen. And a while ago I made this little carrier for some of my whetstones. I find it easier than doing it on the bench, and it was kind of fun to make. I have 3 different stones on it. I have a really coarse, a very coarse, and I'd say a coarse. I have a medium and a fine, and I have a very fine stone. Well, these knives, they're not in bad shape, so I'm just going to touch them up with a fine, and then I'll dress them up with a butcher's steel afterwards, and that'll be more than enough. I'm going to put a little WD-40 on my stone, and I'm sure I'll hear some comments like I did the last time about WD-40. Well, I don't have any mineral oil with me, and I can't put water in the stones out here because they'll freeze and break. So I just give her a little squirt of WD-40, and they'll be washed inside anyways. So I'm just going to give them a few strokes, and then we'll touch them up with the butcher's steel. I'll just work through these. And I think I actually will touch them on the fine stone, the very fine stone. You know, as I sharpen these knives, I'm thinking about some stories from the good old days. My father-in-law used to tell me that his mother told him, never buy a dull knife. If you're going to buy a knife, make sure it's sharp before you buy it. Otherwise, it's not a good quality knife. There, all the kitchen knives have had the first run through. Now it's time to give little Betsy, my jackknife, a little love. It gets used for a lot of things that knives weren't intended to do. Perfect. Alrighty, we're going to switch out. We're going to take out the medium fine, and go with a very fine. This one just fits in there. And I'm just going to run through all these kitchen knives once again, and then we'll touch them on the steel. There we go. They're all done. Now, take my Victorinox butcher's steel, and I'll just take the little burrs off. My wife's going to be very happy when she gets these knives back. There, all those knives are nice and sharp now. Now, before we stop and before I call it a night, I want to show you a couple of treasures I got this year. So the other day on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm not a great Facebook person, believe you me, but I do use it for my work. I actually had an opportunity to buy a couple of pocket whetstones. When I was a boy, everybody had a pocket whetstone. If you had one in your tackle box, you had one whenever you went hunting, you kept one in your pocket, or even the old guys that worked. I remember a time I was with this old trapper, and this was probably, close to 50 years ago actually. And we were trapping in the spring, and This was before the days of four-wheelers. He did have snowmobiles, but the snow was a little too slushy and messy for snowmobiling, so we were walking. And I can remember we came along this one set with a 330 counting bear, and he got this monstrous beaver. Now, when you're a little boy, of course, every big beaver weighs 60 pounds and it's a super blanket size. All I remember now is that it was a really big beaver. And that gentleman sat down, Don was his name. Don sat down and he said, "I think we'll make our load a little easier." And he skinned that beaver in place. And before he did any skinning, he pulled out his pocket whetstone and he sharpened his knife. And I've butchered several deer with that gentleman over the years, and he always had his pocket whetstone, and before he did anything, he would sharpen his jackknife or his skinning knife with his whetstone. Well, I had a chance to buy these, and they're brand new. They're so old that the leather here, that the sheaths they're in, are like granite. And I'm going to add some neat's foot oil to the leather just before I go in and let it absorb it and hopefully soften and save that leather. But I wanted to show you another cool thing I got this summer. So this was my father's butcher knife. My father had this for many, many, many years, and as you can see by the profile of the blade here, it's been sharpened many, many times. Every time we killed a pig, or a cow, or a steer, this was the knife that we used. And I've used it to cut up a lot of deer. Well, this summer, I was at an auction sale, and of course it was socially distanced, and we all wore masks, and it was outside, and all of that. And it was north of here at this place that we just love to go to these auctions. And well, at the end of the sale, he always goes, "Okay, folks, I think this sale's drawing to a close. Is there anything anyone sees that they'd like to have interest?" He says, and he always goes, "If you're fair with us, we'll be fair with you." So I saw this knife. So I grabbed it, and I looked at it, and oh, the blade was rusty. And the worst thing that could have happened, someone had sharpened it on a bench grinder. But I said, "Oscar, can you hold up this?" And he held up that knife, and I got it for $6. It is exactly the same as the knife that was my father's. It's just one size smaller. I can't tell you how pleased I was to get it. And like these leather pouches that these whetstones go in, the sheath was as hard as granite. So I soaked it and soaked it with neat's foot oil, and it's come back quite good. And I did a lot of work. I wire-wooled, steel-wooled the blade and got rid of the rust. And then I worked on it and worked on it with these stones here actually, and brought the edge back. It's made with Solingen steel, or as a friend from Germany, Reuven, told me years ago, it's not Solingen, it's Solingen. Just like my father's knife, it's made from Solingen steel. And looking at it, I kind of think it's a post-war Germany thing. Well, I sure was pleased to get it. Well, folks, I'm going to oil up these sheaths, wipe these knives down, and then I'm going to call it a night and go in and see my bride. By the way, this neat's foot oil, I buy it at Home Hardware of all places. And I'm going to put quite a bit on here because these, oh my goodness, are they dry and are they hard? And I really would like to save these. I actually have a whetstone or a pocket stone like this that I had when I was a teenager, and it's camelbacked in shape because it got used so much. And I've put it away somewhere special so I don't lose it. And I know I have it, but I can't remember where that special place is. Someday I'll find it. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again. I'm out of the house with Paul.